That is why I said retest mat bolo. Now become a professional trader. Now instead of saying a retest, now you should focus on what? In this case, a higher low.
Yeah, higher low.
So forget about retest and all. That is basic level traders, basic to intermediate level traders. Now you have to go on a bigger scale. So what you will start saying is, forget about the retest. I want to see a higher low, or I want to see a lower high, whatever the case may be. Clear it?
Okay.
Let me show you all one more example. See, sometimes let's say initially I understand ki, it might be difficult spotting patterns. Alternatively, what you could do is instead of the candle type, you can change the pattern. You can change the chart type to line. This fairly makes it easier, but eventually I want you all to practice on candle patterns because आपके पास जब ट्रेडिंग करते हो आपके पास इतना टाइम नहीं है कि बैठ के बार बार आप लाइन चार्ट में चेंज करोगे, then you look into it and then you'll again change it back. So just in case if you're very confused initially, you can change it to a line type. Otherwise, I'll suggest to always practice on the difficult side only, and what you will be practicing or doing on a longer run. Practice on your candlesticks. Someone asked a question, why are patterns important if it's just same as the market structure? Again, it's just for us to identify things easier. अब यहाँ पे मेरे को पता है कि market structure shift हो रहा है. You can look at things in that way also. But on the contrary, you can also think that this is inverted head and shoulder. There are certain targets I can aim for, and you can take a trade accordingly. Clear it? Just to make things easier, just to make identification of the chart easier, and just to make you comfortable with the charts. Otherwise, as I said, today's session is not even as important personally from a advanced trader point of view, because this is nothing but a combination of what all we have been doing. Archit, why is it getting confusing? Aapko always wait for a higher low if you're following that market structure. Firstly, you have to be very clear in your mind if you are a breakout trader or if you are a market structure trader. If you are a breakout trader, trade immediately. If you are a market structure trader, wait for that higher low. यहाँ पे inside candle breakout हो रहा है. Same thing as a higher low only. You can take a trade. As I said, retest मत बोलो उसको. It's a higher low or a lower high. Okay, coming back to this example. Again, we have the left shoulder head and right shoulder. And in this case, we see that in the last leg, I'm covering the major point over here, which is the most important point. In the last leg, the volumes are not as good. Either distinctively we can see that the volumes were increasing, in the previous leg the volumes were decreasing, etc., etc. But in this case, it is not the thing. The volumes are rather decreasing. That is why you can see the breakout was not as clean. The breakout happened, came back up, retested this level, came down again came back up, tried to almost hit our SL. ठीक है, तो it is very important for you to observe the volumes and to also see if there is good momentum or not. Even during the time of breakdown, in this case, volumes were not as good. That is why we know that this is not a very clean head and shoulder. So what all ways you can take a trade? Either you can completely avoid it, or if you want to take some sort of a risk, you can take the risk. But what you will do this time around is you will not hold the trade for a very long time, because you know that the structure is not as clean. Now you know that the structure is not as clean. So what you will do is, even if you take a trade, keep very small targets, buy sell quickly, or the other way around in this case, short and buy quickly. Is this point clear to all? Now let's say that it was a clean structure. This was your weekly chart, and you have certain set targets. This is a support level over here. Let's see how many points is this on the downside. Roughly about 30 points on the downside. Sorry, 30% on the downside. Targets eventually have been achieved. So if I want to stay in the short trade, to achieve that 30%, what is the one way that I can do? See how many days did it take? It is nearly, I think, 1 year, if I'm not mistaken. It is nearly more than 1 year for us to achieve the target on the downside. So how can you hold on to this trade if you want to play this trade? Future short and rollover. Okay? Or alternatively, you can do call shots. But if you really want to hold on to the trade, it's futures short with rollovers. Point clear? Is this point clear to all? And as I said, it could be a little at an angle as well, something like this. Again, not as clean as the one we saw in the first example, but it can again be at an angle. It's not necessary it should be straight. So these are your examples of head and shoulders and inverted head and shoulders. What time frame it is applicable on? It is applicable on all the time frames. But always remember, आप कौन से time frame पे वो observe कर रहे हो. Now in this case, as I said, if you're observing this on the weekly chart, so your targets will be bigger. The trade will be longer. But if the same thing, if you would have observed on a 15-minute chart, so now you can't go for bigger targets. As compared, now in this case, let's say the breakout is happening around 63 rupees, you can go for double, 120 or whatever the resistance level over here is. But in case of a 15-minute chart, if you see an inverted head and shoulder on 15-minute chart, आप target 120 का नहीं रख सकते. You have to set targets as per your 15-minute chart only. So be very clear on this point. Okay. The first pattern, second pattern. Now let's come to the third pattern. Quite similar to your head and shoulder. It is known as a double top or M pattern. Now this is by far one of the most important patterns frequently occurring, and the best part about this is that though it is frequently occurring, the accuracy is still very high. So let's see how does this look like. There will be an existing uptrend, market will form a top, market will give a correction, again it will form a top, and again it will give a correction. Same thing over here, this level over here is known as a neckline. However, there is an additional point over here. This bottom is known as a reaction low. Now, इसका एक importance है. There is certain importance of reaction low. I will be covering that in a few minutes, but before that, let's just cover the basics. Again, the height of the two peaks need not be exactly same. Plus minus a few points does not really matter. Or a few percentages plus minus does not really matter. Again, it is said that till the time the pattern is resting on its neckline, we say that the pattern is not complete. We would want a breakdown to happen, only then that structure reversal is happening. So at the time of the breakdown, what do I want? I want high volumes, and simultaneously in certain situations I can apply my price filter and time filter. Speaking of the overall volume analysis, in the first leg, the volume should be high. In the second leg, the volume should be low. Now in the third leg, the volume should have been high. In the third leg, the volume should have been high, but in this case, what is happening? The volumes are low. And in the last leg, the volume should have been low, but now what is happening is not only the volumes are high, but there is good momentum as well. So again, this is raising a red flag, or in other terms, it is indicating a shift in the strength from buyers to the sellers, followed by a breakdown. Abhi the clear edge same like your head and shoulder, nothing new way. Volume analysis is the same, nothing new. Now one more point. Now I'm talking about the distance between the two peaks. मैं height की बात नहीं कर रहा. I'm not talking about the height. I'm talking about the distance between the two peaks. Now as per the book, it says that the distance between the two peaks should be at least 2 to 3 months, which is not correct. It depends on what time frame we are trading on. What you need to understand in this case is that the distance between the two peaks should be reasonable. It shouldn't happen that the two peaks are too close to each other. Now, if the two peaks are too close to each other, what is happening is this is not a double top pattern, rather, this is just a consolidating market. So that's the difference. ये याद रखना. And you can confirm this with your volume analysis as well. What will be the difference in case of consolidation and a double top in terms of volumes?
Consolidation will have low volume altogether.
Perfect. So in your overall consolidation, volumes will be low. But in case of a double top, in the last leg especially, the volumes will be increasing with good momentum. Is this point clear to all? Now speaking of the target, again it says that the height of the peak, now you can take whatever peak you like, should be the target as per the book. But what we will be doing is we'll be placing S1, S2, S3, be it pivots or manual levels, and that will be your target 1, target 2, target 3. Now when I say manual levels, please remember, we are covering trend lines as well. So, काफी बार क्या होता है, most of you all plot your horizontal or static levels, but don't plot your trend lines. And many a times market takes support or resistance from the trend lines itself, or that is rather your targets. So don't forget your trend lines. Again, there are two types of entries over here. Either immediately at the breakdown, high risk seekers can take a trade immediately at the breakdown with a stop loss above the peak. For people who want to be on the safer side and be safeguarded from the false breakout, you will wait for the lower high for your entry. And again, your SL will be the same. Now, speaking of the reaction low, listen to this very carefully. There is a little difference too. Again, it depends on what sort of a trader you are. This point is known as a reaction low. Now, sometimes at the reaction low, what happens is the market ends up forming a hammer sort of a pattern or anything with a large lower wick. So if it is doing this, now my reaction low, instead of this neckline, it now changes to this point. Now this is my reaction low. Now the problem or the major problem over here is, where do we take a trade? Do we take a trade at the break of a neckline, or do we take a trade at the break of the reaction low? What are your thoughts? Where should we ideally take a trade?
Bhaiya, if you're a market structure trader, then to
So again, it depends. It is subjective. It's not necessary that you take a trade at the break of a reaction low only or at the trade of a neckline only. Again, it depends on the risks you want to take. Now, if I look at the overall chart, what I will see is, what is this lower wick rejection indicating in terms of buyers and sellers? What is this lower wick rejection indicating? Presence of whom? Presence of buyer in the market. So can't I say that till this reaction low level, I am certain that there are buyers in the market. So if I immediately short the break of the neckline, the risk over here is that till this point in time, there is a highly possible situation that the buyers will again come back into the market and reverse the structure from there, giving it a false breakout. समझ रहे हो what I'm trying to say over here? But once the reaction low is broken, now what is happening? The sellers are overpowering the buyers completely, and it is confirmed. So it is totally up to you. How do you want to take a trade? I have personally seen one example. Long back ago, I was trading, I think a couple of months back, I was trading HDFC Bank, and the same thing happened either on the 15-minute chart or the 5-minute chart, where it broke the neckline, but there was a reaction low, and I'm personally a little on the safer side of the market. I did not take a trade. Good thing I did not take a trade, because markets reversed from there. Buyers again came into action and pushed the price down. So is this point clear to all? Yes or no in the chat quickly? Similarly, we have a double bottom. It is totally the same. Nothing new over here. Alright. So as per your volume analysis, in the first leg, volume will be high. In the second leg, volume will be low. In the third leg, volume should have been high, but now what is happening? Volumes are low. And in the last leg, volume should have been low, but now what is happening? Volumes are high. Indicating a shift in strength from your sellers to your buyers. Again, it is totally up to you if you want to take the trade immediately on the break of the neckline, or you want to wait for that higher low, or you want to wait for the break of the reaction low or the reaction high in this case. That is totally up to you. That is why trading becomes a little subjective. See, always think of trading as a game of cricket. Let's say you are a batsman, a bowler comes, he throws a bouncer to you. So different batsmen play bouncer in different ways. Some might leave it. Players who are a little tall, they might play it, etc., etc. That is why trading is also a little bit dynamic, and you have to trade according to your convenience, your risk appetite. Overall, everything is the same, nothing new over here. However, a very important concept I'm sharing with you all. Now, if the peak is something like this, which is pointed, this sort of a top is known as an atom. अब ये पहले सुन लो ध्यान से, then I'll answer your questions. If your peak is pointed, it is known as an atom. And if your peak is rounded, it is known as an eve. Now, can someone tell me from the Santiago batch which is more better for a seller? Why seller? Because it's reversing on the downside. So which is more better for a seller? Is it Adam or is it Eve? And why?
I think Eve.
Why?
Eve. क्योंकि उसका थोड़ा consolidation.
Sorry?
Eve form and consolidation. Some form of consolidation.
Eve, because it will give us time to enter.
No. Right?
It should be
Absolutely.
Eve will give time decay at the top.
अब रुक जाओ.
Adam can be a doji and then give a confirmation for right.
Acha, now listen to me. Adam is something which is much more better. Why? Because in this case, if we logically see what has happened, when it was the opportunity for the buyers to play in the market, they have conveniently played. And now when it is the seller's opportunity to play in the market, they did not hesitate at all. They immediately took stance and they took the markets down. But in case of an Eve, what is happening is buyers, when they got an opportunity to play, they took the markets on the top. But now when it is the seller's opportunity to take the markets down, what is happening? They are hesitating. They are halting at the top for some reason. And eventually they are pushing it down. So probably something is not right over here, or in other terms, the momentum is not good over here. Is this point clear to all? यहाँ पे sellers did not let buyers sustain at all. थोड़ी देर के लिए भी नहीं रुकने दिया उनको वहाँ पे. But in this case, what is happening? Sellers are letting buyers to exit आराम से. Probably something is not right. Is this point clear? Now let me ask you a very tricky question. When you are in a primary trend, so what is more likely that you will be observing? Will you observe an Adam or will you observe an Eve? सोच के बताओ मुझे.
Can you repeat the question?
If the trend is if your primary trend is in a downward direction, so what is more likely that you will observe? Will you observe an Adam or will you observe an Eve?
Eve. Adam.
सोचो मैंने क्या सिखाया अभी. Just अभी क्या सिखाया मैंने?
It has to be Eve.
Why?
Like you said, अभी एडम में यहाँ पे सेलर्स ने एकदम प्रेशर मारा नीचे की तरफ, बट ईव में सेलर थोड़ा हेजिटेट हुए. So there
Primary
must
trend अगर मेरा lower high lower low है, then why do the sellers need to hesitate? Think of it. So shouldn't it be Adam? My primary trend is a lower high lower.
Oh yeah, yes of course. Primary trend is negative.
So primary trend is negative. Who is in control? Sellers are in control. So don't I want the sellers to be a little on the stronger side for the trend to be intact and strong? So what would I prefer? An Adam over Eve. समझ रहे हो ये चीज? Are you getting the logic? ठीक है? This is where things get a little tricky, and these small things change your trading completely. सोचो what I'm saying.
Himalay, if we talk about lower high, then it can means we want that top to be an Adam. Okay, but if we talk about lower low, then it should
Why
be.
will we talk about lows? I say in a lower high lower low structure, why are we bothered about the lows?
Okay, we are not going.
We are shorting at rise. We are not buying the dip.
Okay, but
ठीक
सर
है?
लाइक निफ्टी बैंक निफ्टी में 4th 5th और 6th अप्रैल को जैसे हुआ था, जैसे आपको याद है एचडीएफसी ट्विंस का जब मर्जर था उसके बाद एक ट्रिपल टॉप बना था, तो कैन वी कंसीडर दैट एडम पीक और एडम टॉप, सॉरी.
I'll come to the examples. तो तब मैं देख लूंगा.
ओके ओके.
So basis this Adam and Eve concept now, if you merge it with our double tops, double bottoms, so let's talk about the priority. I'll give you the first one. When there is a double Adam, it is the best situation. Second formation कौन सा होगा? What is the second combination which can be good? In terms of priority, double Adam is the first. What comes on the second?
ईव एडम.
Eve and Adam. ठीक है? In this case, what is happening? Initially, the sellers hesitated, but at the second time, they did not hesitate at all. Third combination.
Eve.
No. Third बोल रहा हूँ. Adam and Eve. What is happening in Adam and Eve? Initially, the sellers did not hesitate, but in the second phase, the sellers hesitated in taking the prices down. Finally, in terms of the lowest priority, it's double Eve, where in both the cases, the sellers were hesitant in taking the prices down. Point clear to all? Yes or no? Quickly in the chat. बताओ. And this is applicable for double tops and double bottoms both. Let me show you all examples. So this is your double E sort of a formation. Okay, at this point in time, you can see the neckline did not break. So your double top is there, but the neckline did not break. That is why I said it is important for your neckline to break. Only then do we say that the structure is complete. ये देखो double bottom हो गया. What is happening in this case? Can someone tell me what sort of a combination in terms of Adam and Eve this is?
Eve Adam.
सर ईव एडम डबल बॉटम.
Eve Adam double bottom. Perfect. तो एक चीज अब Eve Adam or Adam Eve or whatever the combination may be, what do we interpret out of this? Is it that if it's a double Eve we cannot take a trade? No, nothing as such. It's just that if it's a double Eve, what we will do is our targets will be on the lower side. If it's a double Adam, our targets would be aggressive. That's the only difference. ठीक है? Is this point clear to all? So there are multiple such examples. Double tops, double bottoms, frequently occurring on all time frames. Very easy patterns to spot. Especially on your intraday, most likely it will form a double top or a double bottom to shift its structure or reverse its structure. Point clear to all? Yes or no? The examples you can find it anywhere. Alright, can we move to the next pattern? Yes or no? Yes or no? Now the next sort of a pattern that we have is known as a rounded top or a rounded bottom. Again, why is this a unilateral pattern? Because the direction of the breakout or the breakdown is certain from before. We know कौन सी direction में breakout या breakdown होने वाला है. Next one is your rounded top or your rounded bottom. A very useless pattern, I would say. How does this look like? Of course, a rounded top with your neckline. Everything is the same. Is just one big eve, you could say. The only and only important thing that you need to understand in a rounded top is the volume. Now, how will the volume look like? The volume curve will look like something like this, where in the uptrend the volume was increasing. Sorry, in the uptrend the volume was there. Eventually, at the top the volumes were decreasing, and again when the downtrend started, the volumes again started increasing, indicating a shift of the strength from the buyers to the sellers. As simple as that. Speaking of the targets, again it's the same, S1, S2, S3, manual or pivot, whatever you like. Speaking of the SL, what will my SL be? Just above the top. Nothing more to this. Very basic top. Breakdown होता है, I want high volumes, and wherever required, I can put in my price filter and time filter. Speaking of the rounded bottom, same thing, just the opposite version. Now let me ask you all a question. इसमें, how should the volume look like? Give me a proper answer, think it through. Will it look like this or will it look like this? Is it 1 or is it 2?
No, 2.
What could be the target in this case from the reaction low or the neckline? The true, it does not matter. आप अगर book के हिसाब से कहोगे तो you should go through your neckline. But as I said, your target should be a manual level. So it does not matter कि reaction low से है कि neckline से है. 2, 1. Some people are saying 1, some people are saying 2. Now understand, logically think हम क्या कर रहे हैं. We are not going about completing circles over here. तो 1 नहीं है. Logically सोचो, volume analysis क्या कर रहे हैं. Again it is 2. Why? In the downtrend the volumes are decreasing. Shift from what? Sellers to the buyers. At the bottom volumes are minimal and again the volumes are increasing. So volume structure is the same or the volume curve is the same. It's just that the pattern has got inverted. Are you all getting this point? We're not going about completing circles over here. Are you all clear with this point? Yes or no? Batao. Alright, again the same thing. When the neckline breaks, we need good volumes. And wherever required, we want price filter and time filter. Targets R1, R2, R3, be it pivot or your manual levels, including trend lines. Stop loss just below the low. As simple as that. If you are a market structure trader, in this case, you will wait for that higher low. If you are a market structure trader over here, you wait for that lower high. Let me show you an interesting example. Actually, uske pehle let me just cover one more point. I'll just tell you one thing. You must have read many books and all, and I honestly say that many books just fool you. Why? Because if I just add one more element to this, so the books say that it is a completely different pattern, which is not true. If I just add a channel before the breakdown, if I just add a channel before the breakout, now what will happen? Now they'll say this is a completely new pattern. This is known as your inverted cup and handle, and this is known as your cup and handle. Which does not make sense because it is completely the same. Logic पूरा same है. Are you all getting the logic over here? Base पकड़ो. What is the logic? the objective. In this case, we are just waiting for the support to break. In this case, we are waiting for the resistance to break with good volume. Everything else is the same. Volume curve is the same. Volume curve is the same. It's just that before the breakdown, a channel. What is a channel? Candles are moved in this direction. ऐसे. Candles are moved in this direction. ऐसे. Bus. Then given a breakout over here. Then given a breakout. Is this point clear to all? Yes or no? Yes or no? So mark this example. Bharti Airtel on the day chart. This is a very important stock. Long term में जब भी opportunity मिलती है, keep adding.
March.
I am personally very bullish on the stock. Idea is something, if you are planning to add, don't do it. If you want to take a hero zero, then instead you should invest in Yes Bank. If you want to take that sort of a risk, so instead of going for Vodafone Idea, Yes Bank would be a better opportunity. And in terms of the telecom sector, in my opinion, Airtel is a must-have in a long-term portfolio. Okay, anyway, coming back to the structure, what is this? A rounded top, and for the same period you can see what is happening. The volume curve दिख रहा है? Practically we have a rounded top, we have a rounded curve over here. Now what is happening? Just instead of giving us a direct breakdown, market has rather given us a small channel on the upside. Now the same pattern is known as a what? Inverted cup and handle. Breakdown दिया. As per the book, the height of the cup is to be taken as the target on the downside. Height of the cup is to be taken as the target on the downside. That is what we are doing. First target achieved. Now we are telling me, can I go on for further targets or should I completely book out my profits over here? कुछ दिख रहा है यहाँ पे where I can hold on to my trade.
Inside candle.
Inside candle. Inside.
Right candle. So can I go for further targets?
Yes, sir.
Perfect. Okay, so don't just stick to what the book is saying. Don't just stick to what is there. यहाँ पे क्या हो गया? Initially our target was 460. Eventually what happened? We saw an inside candle breakdown over here. We are going for further targets. Eventually we saw, आगे आपको सिखाऊंगा, positive divergence with RSI था and the market reversed from there, getting into what? A higher high, higher low structure. Can you all clearly observe a higher high, higher low structure over here? Very easily identified. So it is all about the structure. Clear hai? So on that note, we are completed with our unilateral patterns. Any doubts? I'm taking up doubts right now. If you want a break for 2-3 minutes, go have a water, and all. For those who want to ask me doubts, can ask me doubts.